Number one, according to Geisler, many of the scientists who founded modern science were creationists. All right. So many of the earlier and famous scientists were actually believed in the Bible and believed in, and took for granted that creation was true. If you think about this, it's interesting. Because if you do think things are designed, then you have more motivation to search out that design. See that? But over time, secularism and naturalism has taken over science, at least the official view. And if you believe that everything is just here by chance, you have a lot less motivation to actually look at it and find out things in a sense. Although, of course, science has its own momentum at this point. Yeah. Right. So naturalism is this belief that all there is stuff. And I think we've mentioned that. But that's an important part of this whole critique of science, is that instead of just observation, science today says that any reliable evidence or fact has to have a natural solution, has to have a natural context. In other words, it has to be explained by natural forces. Is anybody with me? So what that is, and that's fine as far as it goes, but it doesn't mean if you find a natural answer, you can still assume that it's all designed. But there's this step that says anything we find, we can't assume a miracle or assume God. That's not necessary. And I'm not being as clear as I could be, but it's smuggling in this philosophy that of naturalism, that all there is, like we mentioned before, is the universe. But that is not a scientific observation. Anyway, I want you to understand that that's modern science doesn't like people that believe in God. And that's a cultural phenomenon. It's not anything that they can prove. For instance, there's a mathematician, scientist at Oxford named John Lennox. Anybody seen him or heard of him? Anyway, he's a fascinating guy. He's debated these secular scientists, but he's kept his position, but also kept his belief in God. And he's a terrific debater and source, but he's kind of the exception to the rule. If you talk too much about God, you're in the cultural, scientific world, in the scholarly world, you're kind of pushed aside. Oh, I can't think of things, but there was a movie years back that showed this, that I would recommend if I could remember the title. But it goes through people being fired or marginalized because they embraced intelligent design, or they were Christians and believed in God. So that's part of the dynamic of all this, is that it's a philosophy that is secular, atheistic, naturalistic, that science cannot actually prove, but it's there. as sort of a, and we'll talk more about that. We're going to label that scientism. Okay, so let's move on. Number 2, origin science seeks answers that are testable by repeating the experiment over and over, and falsifiable if the cause does not always yield the same effect. What you got there, guys? Very good. So you see what I did there? I swapped them. But you weren't tricked. So that's actually the definition for operation science, which is what we think of with science. If people say, I believe in science, that's what they're talking about. Okay, so that's false. Number 3, operation science studies past singularities. It looks at how things began, not how they work. And that's origin science, which is like forensic science, like an investigator of a murder. It's a one-time thing, and they're trying to see what the cause of it was. And so origin science seeks to look at those kinds of things, like the beginnings. So that's also false. So I hope that doesn't throw you off, but if you've got the book, you can go back and look at those definitions. So it was something that we talked about, the difference between mainstream science, observable science, and forensic type science that can be used in a legal situation. Okay, so number 4, 3 is false. 4, Geisler says that most scientists now support the view that the universe is eternal. Okay, good. Scientists now realize, because of observations, that the earth had a beginning. And of course, the Bible already told us that. So that's false. 5, the anthropic principle has to do with the way the universe replenishes its energy in order to continue eternally. You guys don't know? I'm leaving.
True.
No, that's false.
Dang.
Oh, remember we've talked about the anthropic principle. I wasn't really leaving, see. The anthropic principle is that everything is perfectly fine-tuned for life and for human observation. Everybody remember that? Anthropic, does that anthrop ring a bell? Anthropos, mankind. So I just made that up. I just made it up. The universe replenishing its energy in order to continue eternally. So hope you get that. Anybody have a question about that?
I do. I'm curious and I'm not sure how to phrase this question entirely, so if it doesn't come across clear, I do apologize. But how would secular scientists view what the outcome of, like the end of universal expansion, if that makes sense? Like, what do they think would be the next thing that happens?
The next thing that happens is everything winds down and it is no more.
So like everything returns into like the state of absolute
Yeah, like the sun is going to, to them, yeah, it's going to like explode or whatever, or something's going to happen, and everything is going to not be able to sustain life.
Would they then believe that after there's the return to
I don't know, maybe so, maybe so. Yeah. Yeah, cycles. Right, right. Exactly. So, but they can't explain a Big Bang. They have no explanation for it. Yeah, it's based on what they don't know about the Big Bang. They assume that it happened more than once. All of it is theory, but it's based on this, a lot of it is based on this hidden, in plain sight, philosophy called, come on, somebody. I was just talking about it.
Wait, which theory?
I was just talking about naturalism. It's philosophy that they think science has to have in order to operate, but that can be shown to be false. Because you can be a Christian and assume and know that God made everything, designed everything, and still observe. And still come up with and use the scientific method. So I'm trying to get that through to you, that modern science has adopted a philosophy that it cannot prove and it doesn't need. And it's identified that philosophy with the science. And what is that philosophy called? Naturalism.
Yes.
Or an alternative would be materialism. Same thing. But nobody can prove that. It's what's called a closed system. There's nothing outside. There's only stuff. And we already mentioned this. There are things that explode that right away because thoughts are not natural stuff. They're actual things in your mind and your imagination. Remember SpongeBob? Imagination. There was a rainbow, which shows how we're made in the image of God. Love. A lot of other things. Beauty. Why would there be beauty built in if everything was just by chance? Etc., etc.
I guess they would argue that beauty's subjective.
They might. You're right. You're right. But is that true? You know what beauty is? It's symmetry. Part of it is. And that's a design. Anyway, I want you to get that. This idea of naturalism. Okay, so the anthropic principle, everything is fine-tuned. That's why they come up with the multiverses. Remember that? So there's more chance of this particular thing that is astronomically impossible happening if you have multiple universes. Okay, so that's any questions about the anthropic principle? We mentioned some of them, the sun being so far away, all these things, the rotation of the earth, et cetera, et cetera. Number 6, the type of order known as specified complexity requires intelligence as its cause. Like this quiz. Specified complexity, in other words, complexity that has some sort of message or pattern that communicates something. Like the President Mountain, what's that called? Yeah, I couldn't remember, so I called it the President Mountain, Mount Rushmore. There's a communication there of faces that we can read and see, and we can recognize them because we see that some of them are on our money and so forth. So that is an indication of intelligent design. Somebody got up there and chipped that out of the mountain, an intelligent person. And there is within nature and its operations and its functions this indication of intelligent design. Okay, so that's true, number 6. Number 7, in an attempt to escape the conclusion that the universe and life had a creator, some have posited multiple universes, so as to lower the incredible odds and make their evolutionary hypothesis seem more possible. That's true. So Geisler mentions that in this chapter. So what's the evidence for multiple universes?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Come again?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Ha!
I have a question about that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Obviously I got it right because it was obviously your answer. But how does it lower the chances if you have multiple universes? Doesn't that up the chances?
Well, if there are multiple universes, like millions of possible universes, then it lowers the chances of one of them, at least one of them, having this fine-tuned situation.
Right, okay. They're not saying there's
Instead of-
multiple universes with life. They're just saying
No.
there's multiple universes.
That could produce at least one of them. There's a better chance if there's so many universes that one of them. But there's no real evidence of this. All right. So that's true. 8, Darwin was not aware of the serious problems with his analogy between breeders and nature when he put forth the theory of natural selection to explain the development of new life forms. That's false.
I knew it.
So he was aware of it because natural selection, which is only microevolution, can't produce one animal that turns into another and so forth. That doesn't happen. The breeding situation is on purpose, breeding certain characteristics of, say, dogs for a certain purpose, to hunt. Like a wolfhound, they bred wolfhounds back in the Middle Ages. Guess what the purpose was? What's that? Yeah, and for being able to protect against wolves. Okay, so he did know, but he just assumed that nature would do the job that only man can do, really, to breed, because that's intelligence. And he was wrong. Number 9, Geisler says that mutations do not generally improve the genetic code, they degenerate it. So that right there, if you want to know the truth, makes evolution impossible. It's just not going to happen, because you have to have more information to go from a slug to one of you guys. Yeah, whatever's in between. And as you know, there's all kinds of different versions of what turns into what. It becomes, it's absurd in a lot of ways, but people don't see it. Okay. So number 10, evolutionary science offers abundant evidence of transitional forms of life in the fossil record. You know how much evidence there is of transitional forms? None. There's basically none. 9 was true. And there aren't any transitional forms. Everything just keeps being what it is. A bat is a bat. A person is a person.
No matter how small.
Come again?
No matter how
no matter how small. Oh, yeah. What is that from? Yeah, that's great. All right, my friends. So let me review here. 1 is true. 2, 3, 4, 5 false. 6, 7 true. 8 false. 9 true. And 10 false.
So 1 is true, 2 is false, 5 is false, and 6 is true,
Mm-hmm.
7 is true,
Right.
8 is false,
Mm-hmm.
true, and false.
Right. Very good. Any questions about the reading? I mean, we're going to talk some more about it. And actually, what I'm going to do now, I guess I have time, is, yes?
Are we gonna get our final?
Yeah, I'll give you the final, do you want to go over that now, or, I mean, I was going to do it at the end.
We can do it.
What I want to do, and I hope this will work. I guess if I don't get there, I can finish it. Is show you a video. I'm hoping that it will work, and this is actually about number 9, which is there's no new information that's added to the genetic code through random mutations, which do happen. So there's something called neo-Darwinism. The old Darwinism from Darwin had this idea that an animal gets signals from the environment and somehow adjusts and changes, and he passes that down to the next generation. That was the idea original idea of Darwinism. But what we know now is that the genetic code doesn't change because the animal changes. For instance, if a man builds a lot of big muscles, he can reform himself in a way, or a woman, whatever. But it doesn't mean the baby's going to be born with jacked, right? They're always babies. It's the same thing. So that whole thing is out. So they had to have neo-Darwinism. They had to have a different trigger for the changes that happen over time, and they chose the only thing that was available, which was random mutations. But the dirty little secret is they never add information, ever. So it's impossible. And these people know this. It's nuts. So let me calm down. And I'm going to try to get this going. Who knows if it'll work, but we'll see. So if you don't mind, take a moment and drag a chair up there while this guy's looking at the art. Am I going to be able to make this? Don't pay attention to that. Oh, I shouldn't have messed with it.
It may take more than a kiss from a princess to turn a frog into a prince. But, according to evolution story, amphibians, such as frogs, really did turn into mammals, including princes. Today, the theory of evolution is considered an established fact. But it wasn't always so. The book of Genesis is a brief glimpse into the mystery of origins, the revelation of a supreme creator to a fallen creation. A truth doubted by few until only a century and a half ago, when an amateur naturalist set out on a voyage of discovery and shook the world with a heretical idea. Exploring the scorching lava beds of the Galapagos Islands, Charles Darwin was fascinated by the strange wildlife. He saw that giant tortoises isolated on different islands were different sizes and shapes. And he imagined that, given enough time, if the tortoises kept on changing, they might eventually be transformed into something entirely different. At Oxford University, Dr. Richard Dawkins is Professor of Public Understanding of Science, the author of several best-selling books. He is also one of Darwin's foremost defenders.
It takes a long time to think.
What a great spot to stop.
I know.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Slap in this guy's face.
Grab the tomatoes, guys. Me when someone says evolution is how it happened.
I'm not sure what's happening.
The computer
Sometimes
is
the
clearly
internet
agreeing
will slow
with
here.
everyone here.
What?
Sometimes the internet's a little slow here, so this takes time for it to load.
It's also the face you make when the kid's like, you got any games on your phone? You got games on your phone? You got games?
The games on your phone.
Kinda looks like Jack Nicholson.
Are you connected to the internet?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what to do about this.
On changing, they might eventually be transformed into something entirely different. At Oxford University, Dr. Richard Dawkins is Professor of Public Understanding of Science, the author of several best-selling books. He is also one of Darwin's foremost defenders.
Could we check to see if you have internet connection?
This wouldn't be playing at all if I didn't have internet.
It could be that it,
Am I in your thread?
If it's on YouTube, we can try to look it up on this view of the other computer.
Would that work better? Would that work better?
Casey, the last comment is the frog. You are the kiss the last.
if we pull up the video on the other computer, that might, like, because the other one's like wired into the internet, that might be faster.
Awesome.
But,
Well, I'll tell you what we will do. I will do that after the break, okay? And we'll get that set up so we can watch this, since we do have that time. In the meantime, one of the things we can do, may as well, go ahead, I'll give you this final so you can look at it. Isn't that fun? No? No final? So this way, if you have questions about the questions, we can kind of talk about it. I can work you through it so you'll have a good idea what you want to do with it. If you're going to, I was thinking of a good cutoff date would be next Tuesday. Would that be okay for you guys? I don't want to overlap. You got other things you're going to be doing. But I want to give you time to do this if you need time over the weekend.
No, it would help to be able to like have a Sunday or something.
Okay. Is anybody hearing my voice? Am I on?
Is the light flashing?
Yeah, it's on. I was just kind of kidding. Okay.
Asking for the speaker.
Because what I'm saying might be pertinent to you in the future. And if you're not listening, you might forget, but somebody else will tell you. Anyway, there's my email. You can send it to me. And I'm thinking, and I just want to open this up, Tuesday would be a good deadline. Okay? Yes, sir.
So is this kind of a ramble about two of these and then throw just a couple of references to the Bible and stuff in it too, or what's?
That sounds good.
Okay, cool. Something, I like it.
Yeah.
I can do that.
So, but remember this, my friends, the essays should reflect the content of the course. Now, you can also, this is open book essay, an open note, whatever notes you might have taken. But don't go Google something and then tell me that, because I don't want to know that. This is an exam over the content of what we've talked about. And I know it's been pretty short, but anyway. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you girls back there? What's that? That guy over there is looking right at you, so. Now he's looking at me. He's so happy. So, there's my email. Some of you were going to do it and give it to me tomorrow so I can take it back. So if that will work, then we'll do that. Was there an extra one or two somewhere? I don't want to give you questions that you know are like, we didn't even talk about this at all. So I want to go over these. What are the problems with the theory of evolution? We're going to talk about that. Pay attention to the movie. We just read the book. Give the deficiencies of evolution, especially in these areas, contrasted with intelligent design. Within nature, we see something that happens, a phenomenon that happens on the human level. And what did we call that? Anybody remember? What is the marker for intelligent design? Who said that? You get a star. Yay! Specified complexity. So if you don't know what that is, I mean, that would be something to mention in the essay. What about the biology part? We're going to talk about that, but that refers to number 9, the genetic code, the DNA. There are no random mutations that add information. He talks about that. We didn't talk about evolution's social or moral impact, but could you imagine what it might be? Somebody make a noise?
Wait, what was the question?
Evolution's social moral impact on society. Go ahead, we'll let him go for her? No.
Her. I will go. This her will go. Yeah, I remember earlier last year, we did a class on like biblical science and stuff. And that's kind of where I decided, you know, I was raised a creationist, and I still think that way because that's what the Bible says, but when you believe in evolution, you believe in a process of death and just terrible, like basically, I forget what the big fancy word is, but it kind of points to God being a more hands-off type of.
If there is a God,
If
right.
there is a God. And
Right.
that's not in line with what we learn about in Scripture, about loving, you know, Colossians 1:17, through him all things are held together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's that effect, but also with that, I think, idea in mind of just, oh, well, like, there is a God, but, you know, he used this process of death and blah, 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 it kind of takes away some intention from us. Of
Mhm.
just like, well, why does it matter, you know?
Yeah, and you know what that leads to is there's no purpose
Yep.
in life.
Yeah.
It's all what we have today and what we're walking around is built on just survival on corpse after corpse after corpse of thing that has already passed away. And that leads to a philosophy called, exactly, nihilism, which is there is no purpose, there's no reason that we're here. It's just all by chance. And so then you have people going into their high school and shooting people in the head. Because what's it all for? Nothing. One of the first things that happened like that, and now we have almost regular shootings, was in Colorado, I think Colorado. And the two boys that did it were taught evolution, and one of them was wearing a T-shirt, something about survival of the fittest or something. So that's what you get. And you also get Hitler. Hitler believed in evolution. That was his whole program, was to go ahead and get evolution going even faster by getting rid of gypsies and Jews and other wrong-uns, so to speak, so that we could have the Aryan nation and so forth.
And that's what I was gonna say as well, with evolution, it removes this idea, which is really important about human nature, that we all are made in the image of God.
Yes.
And that it makes it easier to, you know, like with the Orion type thing with Nazi Germany, or even one of the ways from history, England, or the British Empire justified colonizing half the world for the same reason.
Mhm.
They were effectively,
Yeah, evolution is actually very racist in that way.
around that time when it came out, they're like, oh, well, because of evolution, we're a superior race, and
Yeah.
we can go, and our goal as a empire is to spread our right view that is better and blah, 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 and more enlightened to all
Yeah.
these other people, and it doesn't matter how.
Some of that might have been evolution. Some of it might have been other reasons, but you're right.
But
The,
evolution didn't help, is my point. It's not the primary reason, but it's something.
the atheistic ideology of communism is also based on some of that. Go ahead.
So with the Nazi regime, they did corrupt Bibles and push, I guess, a different Christian narrative to support their agenda. systematically wiping out religion, or is there like a,
Well,
how does that?
it's propaganda. Yeah. Goebbels said if you give people the big lie enough, they'll begin to believe it, or they won't believe anything, so they won't know what to believe unless you can control people. Anyway, so it leads to this nihilism, and in nihilism, nothing is sacred. Life isn't sacred. Family isn't sacred. Women are not sacred. In the Bible, women are sacred in and of themselves. In the old days, when a woman came into the room, all the men would stand. Something about that. Children and babies aren't sacred. Babies in the womb are not sacred. This is the world we're living in. A lot of it is because of evolution. Because the baby is just a mass of cells and so forth. It's reductionism. But we know that you can't reduce human beings to mechanistic stuff, can you? We've already talked about that because of love and beauty and thought and everything else. So the Bible tells us what's real. That's good. So the moral impact has been devastating, and you can comment on that. Okay, any questions about the number one? Give an analysis of what you see, number two, as the typical person who's lost and blinded by contemporary culture. How can you express your faith in terms that postmodern culture, and I mentioned postmodernism a little bit, but with its various worldviews, atheism, secularism, relativism, naturalism, nihilism, pantheism, which is the Eastern religions, God is all and all is God. How can you express your faith in the midst of all that? So that someone will understand without compromising any key element of the gospel. So that's something you can sort of write a little profile of, maybe even somebody that you've talked to, how you tried to, and how you would, based on some of the things you've learned, how you might clear objections away and so forth. All right, any questions about that? Postmodernism, is that something that you guys are pretty familiar with? It's just sort of a history of thought and philosophy in the 20th century. And that is, modernism was a program that said we can solve all our problems by reason and by science. Starting with the Enlightenment. We're not superstitious anymore. We can explain everything by science. We don't think it's God bowling if it thunders. We know what that comes from, etc. But how did that program work out in the 19th and the 20th century? Were the problems solved by science? No, everything just got worse. You had 2 world wars, you had communism, 100 million people dead for no reason, etc., etc., etc. So postmodern came along and was basically a critique of that whole program, and said that it didn't work, it failed. Thus, we can't really trust that anymore. We can't really trust that we can find truth just via our reason. And so truth is relative in the postmodern view. Is anybody with me? That's postmodernism. We don't know, you don't know, I don't know. We all have our truth. So we may as well just have fun. Does that reflect some of our culture? Yeah, it's amazing. It's pretty accurate. So that's postmodernism. All right. Number 3, what do you see as the proper role of reason and faith in the apologetic task? is reason to be rejected when it comes to matters of faith? Is Christianity reasonable? We did talk about this the first day, but any questions about that? It's sort of foundational in everything we're doing because, as I've mentioned, the New Testament is reasonable evidence of supernatural power that we can place our faith in. The apostles were witnesses to the resurrection. Is anybody with me? So we can say that, we can see that for a Christian, we don't separate faith and reason. They work together. That's what the apostles were running around doing all the time. This guy rose from the dead, therefore he's the Messiah to the fellow Jews and to the Gentiles. He's God come into the world. And he said, and he offers you forgiveness and new life, etc. So it's all reasonable, based on historic evidence. So you can choose that one and talk about that a little bit. I remember trying to witness to my doctor one time, and was kind of telling him some of the gospel. And he said, "Well, that's just all in the realm of faith." And what did he mean by that? Yeah, it's not based on anything, but it is based on everything. That's the whole point. But a lot of people think that way. They look at these spheres and they don't overlap at all. There's faith, which is just believe things, and fantasy and emotions, and then there's reason, which is science. But that's a complete, what we call a canard. It doesn't hold together. But people believe that. My doctor believed that. So he's going to base his life on science. Even though he goes home and he loves his wife and he has thoughts all day long that aren't material, et cetera, all that. All right, so that's number 3. Number 4, discuss the issue of evil and suffering. Why is it such a crucial question for apologetics? What is the best Christian defense in answer to the question? So what did we say was the Christian defense that we recommended?
That God has a plan to use the evil to bring about the best possible world.
Okay, right. As far as the origin of evil comes from the freedom that we've been given, and that freedom is crucial for us to be able to relate to God in a relationship of love. Because real love is always mutual. It's always free. And that's what God has to give us. All right. State the problem in a logical sequence. So the problem is not up there anymore, but remember it was God is all powerful. He's completely good. What's the next one? Like a syllogism. Evil exists. Therefore, what's that?
Was that the one where the case where so then God must not be true?
Right, right. And you'll find that in the chapter. He lays that out. If you forget what it is, you can go back chapter 4 and look at that. So how do we answer that? We do it like what you said. It's possible that God can even use evil for good. That's how powerful and good he is. And it really doesn't follow that just because evil exists, God can exist because of freedom. But also, he's already intervened. This funnels you right to the gospel. Has God the whole point of the gospel is Jesus. Has God intervened on our behalf because there's evil? Yeah, he died on the cross for the world, etc., etc. Okay, so remember you can go back and look at the book too. Any questions about any of these? Does this look like it's too overwhelming or anything? Okay, so you choose two, whatever you feel like you can ramble about. And you don't have to quote the book or anything like this. Is an essay, so it's information that's you've run through the sieve of your own mind, and you're expressing it in your own words and so forth. Are you aware of the problem with AI in education?
It's really helpful, it makes me get good grades.
I just wonder, even at a Christian college, we're having some trouble with that because people become so dependent on it. Exactly.
It's just lazy.
And you're not going to learn the same as if you use your own brain and right. Yeah, and it's not really, you're not really taking it through your own thoughts and analyzing things. You're just copy and pasting, All right, my friends. Anything else about that? So, we'll get this set up so that this movie can show. And can I sit back there, or is that?
Oh, you can, yeah, if you want.
Yeah, so I can stop it if I want to say something.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back at 11. So you get 5 extra minutes or so. Is that right, 11? Yeah.
Question about a part of the text, and I would have asked it earlier, but I just didn't pertain to the subject.
Yeah.
So when it's talking about like the maintenance aspects, I was curious if you could explain more about how these specific things maintenance life? Or
Oh, maintain life? Yeah.
yeah. So like the right amount of seismic activity is needed for life. What does it mean by that?
Well, that's earthquakes and so forth, and the shifting of the. I'd have to just kind of go back and see what he means by that. But I'm sure there's a scientific answer.
I'm
That-
sure there is too. I just didn't understand how earthquakes contribute to life.
Well, yeah, I'd have to look at that. That's a great question.
I understood a good chunk. Is this one like the distance between stars necessary for life? Is that they aren't like burning us to a crisp?
I would have to go back and see too on that one because it's interesting, and just the main point is that all of these things in the whole universe are set up perfectly for life,
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a good answer. Like if you do a little research, like there's all kinds of good resources, answers in Genesis, and
Yeah, I'll probably have to look
there's
for it.
the,
There were just some of these that I just didn't quite understand the correlation, like the speed of light is proper for life, or the
speed of light, yeah,
the thickness of the Earth's crust is
right.
correct amount.
And he doesn't really go into it, it's just kind of a list.
Yeah, he doesn't quite go into it, but he does give decent explanations for other things.
Uh-huh. Good questions, I'm not sure that I would have an answer off the top of my
Where
head.
do we put our essays? Not our essays, our
I have them right here, I thought, yeah. Where did I put them?
put these right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Thank you for that.
I just don't, I hope it works, I don't know for sure.
As long as, like, if you placed all this and it went into YouTube, and then you, like, selected the URL, it was probably, oh, there it is. Is that the same video?
Huh?
That's the same video, right?
No,
What's that?
it's the Mormon thing.
This one is, it says Frog to Prince.
What?
Yeah.
What do you see?
I guess that's the.
That's what I sent you?
Yeah, that's the one I just asked for, so that's actually kind of funny. But anyway.
Well, I'll send you. I could have sworn
Yeah, it does.
if I go to,
On
if
the
I,
top, it says Bible verse from Book of Mormon, but that URL was for that video. It's fine, it's fine.
yeah, I'll try it again and see.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to try this again and see what we have. Anybody want the soundtrack for this?
It may take more than a kiss from the princess to turn a frog into a prince. But according to evolution story, amphibians, such as frogs, really did turn into mammals, including princes. The theory of evolution is considered an established fact, but it wasn't always so.
That the judge of all knowledge and the judge of truth is science. So anything outside of science cannot be relied on. Passing those around? There should be enough for everybody. So this has been named scientism because it's a belief in a certain kind of epistemology, which is how do we know anything? How do we know things? Epistemology. So let's look at this. Look in the middle there at that. At this definition of scientism. It's not science itself, which is observing things, coming up with theories, testing them, see if they're reproducible, etc. Scientism is a philosophy based upon the assumption that all truth is derivable by the scientific method. So you can ask them, okay, where did life come from? And they don't know. Why is there something rather than nothing? There's some big questions that science cannot answer. The basic assumption of this viewpoint is that science gives ultimate and complete answers to all kinds of questions. I've just mentioned a few things that it fails. Supposedly there is no area that is not open to investigation by the strict methodology of the natural or physical sciences. So according to scientism, any real true answer must be a physical answer. It must be a natural answer. Is anybody with me? Why do you have thoughts? Well, the brain works and blah, blah, you know. When science speaks, it provides the last word, the final truth, the exact and total description of the true nature of reality itself. But it has to be a natural answer, which excludes what? The supernatural. The indications within even humankind and human nature that there's more to us than just the machine. But that's a philosophy. Technically, this view is sometimes called the unity of science theory. This is not merely an assertion that one methodology should be applied to all the sciences, but it is a deliberate attempt to limit science to search for causal laws or the mechanical or naturalistic type. So anything else is out of court and can't be true because it's not science. The idea is that all truth must be of the type that lends itself to empirical verification in the strict sense. Empirical means observation, things you can see. Scientism, well, skip that next sentence. Scientism is very much opposed to biblical personalism. Scientism carries with it an almost religious fervor, though it has no deity except science itself, which is just a method. So that's why people are able to say, I believe in science. When you say, I believe in science, if that's going to give me the truth, you're making it have a religious flavor to it. Any questions so far? Does it make sense? But this is something that's a culturally approved thing in all the universities. And if you don't follow this philosophy, you are rejected and canceled. This is a cultural phenomenon.
I just had a thought to add to that, like, if scientism is a religion that teaches evolution, it's like, for public schools to truly separate church and state, they'd have to not teach evolution. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Anyway,
Right.
like, it's
But
their-
they'll never admit this. This is not something they're, yeah, I'm a scientist. I'm a scientism. No, but this is what's happening. And notice the bottom, this is a glossary, see naturalism. So this is an epistemology, scientism, based on naturalism, that all there is stuff, and we have to find the answer that corresponds to nature, or it can't be true. But can science prove that statement? No. All right, let's move on. So scientism says that the hard sciences alone have the intellectual authority. Does that ring a bell? We talked about authority to give us knowledge of reality. Everything else, especially ethics, theology, and philosophy, is at least according to scientism based on private emotions. Like some of you mentioned that, like beauty, they would argue it's subjective. Was that you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what they're saying.
Because like some parts of you are subjective, but not.
They're saying that anything outside of hard science is just in the sphere of your own impressions, emotions, opinions, and you can't count on it. Based on private emotions, blind faith, or cultural upbringing. As a result, these disciplines, long regarded by the Western world, like philosophy, theology, as a source of knowledge and a path of wisdom, are said to give us no truth about reality. At least no truth that could be supported by evidence and argumentation, which according to scientism means that theology and philosophy offer no truth at all. J.P. Moreland provides a particularly persuasive argument that counters the popular perception that science can explain everything. In reality, he says there are many things that science cannot explain. And what makes all of this especially interesting is that theism can explain those very things. Moreland gives examples. Science cannot explain the origin of the universe, the origin of the fundamental laws of nature. How did that come out of the chaos of a Big Bang? The fine-tuning of the universe, the origin of consciousness, in other words, thinking, self-aware beings. I assume most of you are self-aware.
I'm not.
Okay, I knew there was an exception.
It's a self-aware statement.
Very good.
This guy's not though.
And the existence of moral, rational, and aesthetic, in other words, beauty, objective laws, and intrinsically valuable properties. The good. Why is there good? Why do we know innately that something is good and something is evil? And these are all topics that theism can adequately address. Scientism believes only what is testable by science can be true. So that's a short statement. Only what is testable by science can be true. Now, what about that statement? Is that statement testable by science?
I mean, it's repeatable.
What's that?
The statement is repeatable.
But is it testable by science?
No.
Thus, it's self-refuting. You see that? Anybody with me? Well, you see it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So when we say, is this statement testable by science, isn't that like them saying, can God make a rock that's too big for God to lift? It's kind of like a series of words that don't actually create a reasonable idea.
Right. It's an absurdity because it's self-refuting. It's a philosophy about knowledge that science never came up with. Because science is only natural answers. Is that a natural answer? So let's check it against the three criteria we saw for a self-refuting statement. Does this statement establish a requirement of acceptability? Yeah. It's an absolute statement. You have to believe this, according to me, the scientist. 2, does the statement place itself in subjection to the requirement? It does because of the word only. It purports to convey truth. Does this statement fall short of satisfying its own requirement? Yes, this is a philosophical statement about science that cannot itself be tested by science. Can you believe how absurd things are? So now this cartoon illustrates all of this. And the cartoon is a little dark at the end. I'm just warning you. But it's a great little cartoon illustrating the emptiness of scientism, which is very, very popular and dominant in our culture, scientism. So the smug guy who says, I believe in science, says, if it's not scientifically verifiable, then it's meaningless. The other person says, can you scientifically verify that statement? And just like Richard Dawkins, the next panel, he's not able to do it. And he's thinking, his whole worldview is crashed. You guys see the cartoon? You don't see the cartoon? Why did I give that guy a star before? All right. Questions, comments? So that's scientism. So turn it back over. And C.S. Lewis was already onto this. And he even comments on it in his brilliant fictional thought experiment called the Screw Tape Letters, where one demon is giving advice to a junior demon about how to deceive the human. So he says, anybody read that, Screw Tape Letters? It's a fascinating, fascinating thing. It's good. I really recommend it. I'm glad you've read it. So Wormwood is the junior demon. Screwtape is the senior demon. And he's giving him advice about how to deceive and mislead. I wonder you should ask me whether it is essential to keep the patient in ignorance of your own existence. In other words, lead them to believe in this sort of a thing where the only answers are natural. So there's no demons, there's no supernatural. That question, at least for the present phase of the struggle, has been answered for us by the high command. So what would the high command be? Yeah. Our policy for the moment is to conceal ourselves. Of course, this has not always been so. We are really faced with a cruel dilemma. When the humans disbelieve in our existence, we lose all the pleasing results of direct terrorism, and we make no magicians. Are you guys following this? It's right here. It's on the page. On the other hand, when they believe in us, we cannot make them materialists and skeptics. So what's the synonym for materialist? Good. At least not yet. Now note this. I think this is brilliant. And this is a reflection of where we are now. I have great hopes that we shall learn in due time how to emotionalize and mythologize their science to such an extent that what is, in effect, a belief in us, though not under that name, will creep in while the human mind remains closed to the belief in the enemy. Who's the enemy? God, right. The life force. The worship of sex and some aspects of psychoanalysis may here prove useful. If once we can produce, and this is a key, I just find this fascinating. If once we can produce our perfect work, the materialist magician, the man not using but veritably worshiping what he vaguely calls forces, while denying the existence of spirits, then the end of the war will be in sight. Do we have that today? Yeah. Have the coupling of pantheism, forces, and science today in many cases. You have people inconsistently, I believe in science, but then you ask them in another conversation, do you believe in ghosts? Oh yeah, I think I saw a ghost. Do you believe in aliens and paranormal? Yeah. And they don't even know what they're saying and how inconsistent it is. That's like our culture. Worshiping the earth. All the nonsense that we have today. And yet trying to be scientific. But in the meantime, we must obey our orders. I do not think you will have much difficulty in keeping the patients in the dark, the patient. That's the man he's working on. The fact that devils are predominantly comic figures in the modern imagination will help you. If any faint suspicion of your existence begins to arise in his mind, suggest to him a picture of something in red tights. Persuade him that since he cannot believe in that, it is an old textbook method of confusing them. He therefore cannot believe in you. All right, so the materialist magician. That, in my view, in large part, characteristic of our modern society. People getting in touch with the universe. And the same people in some spiritual way. And the same people saying that the science is the only way to find truth. Isn't that what we have? It's crazy. All right, any questions, comments on this? I just wanted to introduce you to this. I mean, there's a lot more we could say about it, but at least the idea, because I find it that it's a fascinating thing. And truth is not that which can be shown in a lab or by observation. It's that which corresponds to reality. And that's what we'll talk about next week. And if we really observe everything, as the movie showed, to come to the conclusion that there's an intelligent and personal creator is completely reasonable. All right, my friends, that's what I got for you today. So, I don't know if you have had anybody let you go early before.
Oh, no, our lay friends do.
But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to make you stay. Just kidding. All right. Very good. The tall guy's leaving already, so that's it.
The tall guy.
Which one?
How tall are you?
5'11".
No, he's not. He's like 6'1" at least, right?
5'11", I'm like 6'3".
All right, thanks, guys. Quiz on chapter 12 tomorrow.